Hi everybody, JP here from Ebiexperts. Really great to be here today with Jason Cogan. Hi JC, welcome. So we're doing a very special broadcast today, which is Qlik Section Access, and you said it's not sexy but critical. So that is the name of the show today. Not sexy but critical. Sounds good. So let's face it, it's section access, it's boring, you know, and I don't know if anybody will ever listen to this podcast, but I know I know section access is easy to understand, but it has its challenges to implement and maintain. So let's agree that section access is important, but super boring. And you know, it's a small part of what Qlik developers do, but you know, it's critical for data management. So thanks, Jace. Thanks for joining. I'm gonna spotlight you on the screen so we get you over there, and then let's quickly do an intro. So Jason Cogan, you're the head of innovation and technology at Modernizing Management.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate the opportunity, and yeah, it's great to be here.
Thanks, Jess. So you're also the founder of Qlik. Maybe a quick introduction.
Yeah, so you know, on the Qlik side of things, I started coming up with all these ideas for Qlik videos, and then I thought, you know what, I want to try and make a run for the Luminary 2020. Or no, it's a 2022. So I decided to start a YouTube channel called Qlik, and then I've got a supplementary blog around that as well.
Fantastic. Very nice. I mean, we're following it, so of course, very happy to have you here. So let's talk about you, a little bit about your experience. Give us a quick intro. I hear you've been doing Qlik for like 12 years, or
yeah, it's about 12 plus years now. So I think yeah, been in the Qlik game for quite some time. I've implemented countless applications. I mean, probably in excess of 1,000. I remember of a project back in, I think it was 2015 or something like that, 2014, where in about 6 months I built something like 850 Qlik view applications. So I've got a couple under my belt. So
okay.
yeah.
And I hear a rumor that you have all the Qlik certifications: Qlik View, Qlik Sense, Administrator, you know, Data, all of them, right? So
yeah, no, I went through that punishment, and yeah, I got I think if I'm not mistaken, back then I was the first person in South Africa to have all the Qlik certifications that are available.
Fantastic.
So, you know, waiting for the new ones, which is what's coming next. It's Replicate, Compose, and Qlik Catalog. So as soon as they become available, you know, I'll be writing them. So
of course, and you already credited, I guess, so certifying next. Fantastic.
yeah, so accredited jumped on the bandwagon as it become available. So it's just certification next.
Fantastic. So thanks for joining us on this podcast, Jace. And you know, I'm really interested to talk about section access today. So you know, with you and your, you know, you're the one that told me that it's not sexy. So of course, I'm very interested to hear. Conceptually, it's easy to understand, right? Or maybe let's do an intro, because
yeah, I mean, look, section access isn't sexy. I mean, it's a boring topic. It's a necessary topic, but it is boring. But it is, you know, it's obviously very important for security within organizations and that. So yes, with the introduction of Qlik Sense, we started getting stream-based user access, and we could put custom properties and, you know, all the sorts of likes and things like that. But it didn't stop if someone took the application off-site. For example, I mean, in QMC, it's pretty simple to export an app, and off goes your data as well. So section access is a key and necessary thing within your applications to protect your company's data. And then not only that, to obviously provide the row level data as well to the individual users where needed, and then emitting values or even dimensions and that within applications that users shouldn't see. And you must keep in mind that it allows the best way to build one single Qlik application and give access to a multitude of users without having to create these offshoot applications based on different user requirements. So you can have one app, everyone's got access to it, but you just now limit the rows and the columns that's available to the users.
Very nice, very nice. So you keep on mentioning users, so I guess it's about users churning, so onboarding onto organizations, offboarding out of organizations, and then of course you have internal movement within organizations, so internal churn as well. People being promoted and moving between different areas of the business units and divisions, etc. So we saw that in the US, for instance, as an average, you would have like 22%, on onboarding and offboarding on average, and then 30% internal movement. That's quite a lot of movement, especially in a large organization. I mean, how does that affect section access?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a reality. People change roles, change positions, change jobs, you name it. Especially in the banking sector, we've always seen the guys hop around and things like that. So churn is real, and it acts as a it does add difficulties for section access, because you do want to have your security data, or your security model, should I say, up to date constantly. So one way or another, you need to be almost kind of tied into HR to understand who's left, who's come on board, what sort of access, who's requested access. So it is the difficulty where you've got the more apps and people churn than developers do. So it's tough work to maintain that SA. The section access constantly. So every time it's changing, someone's got to come and update either the Excel file, the table, the system, whatever the case is.
Yeah, 100%. So more apps and people than developers. That much is true. Yeah. So it ends up being like maintenance in for the developer. So I mean, I can imagine that that's taking more time than just a developer. So I mean, due to the continuity of change, then is it essentially a large investment which requires multiple resources then?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, not only resources, but time is definitely the biggest killer. I mean, you got to think. One of the other points was that if you change section access, you have to reload your application. Now, if you've got large applications and you've got people who's requesting access, and let's say the application takes 5 hours to reload, that means whoever comes on board can only view their data in 5 hours time. So, you have to keep planning very carefully around it. And then, when we're talking about, continuity of change, in large organizations, that, data is a strategic asset. And should be managed as such. So companies invest to secure and manage their data and the data access. It becomes even more important, as the organization is larger, and depending on the vertical that the organization is in as well. So, and the problems are that it's like I said earlier, it's generally a static solution. Even large organizations to date that I've seen, they use Excel. Very few use databases then. And then some even have sort of different IM, so identity management systems, that they leverage as well. But even those sort of leverages are quite complex, and then requiring different API calls and different structures and that. So even the setup of those, sure, might run nice and smoothly afterwards with a identity management system. But the setup in general, I mean, I think the one customer took something like 6 to 8 months just to set it up, which is crazy, and that's just to get section access going.
Okay, so I mean that that kind of leads us, I suppose, to the point that it is a large investment, you know. So what about what, you know, I also hear that companies have teams to manage these things.
Yeah, they do. I mean, sometimes there are even dedicated teams just for management and access of applications, whether it's, you know, through QMC rights that need to be assigned, to section access that needs to be updated. And, you know, it's a constant monitoring. I mean, you got to then build in your monitoring apps to scan and see who's accessed the applications and make sure that they're part of the security profile, and, you know, so on and so forth. So it can become complex and requires, you know, usually resources.
And then I mean, you mentioned Excel and databases before. Is it self-service, or
Yeah,
what are
I
these
mean,
companies doing?
let's face it, Excel itself, anyone that has access to it, they're very self-servicing themselves on that. And usually databases are a lot harder and a lot more cumbersome to update. I mean, sure, the likes of things like, you know, Vizlib with their write back, you know, has made things a little bit simpler, but there always has to be an interface to maintain and update, or then someone who understands SQL to go and update the stuff with SQL code.
Yeah.
So, you know, there are all those complexities too.
Sounds cumbersome. So what about regulated companies? You said, you know, it's obviously it's around security and it's around data management, but you know, we for instance had a customer that almost attained a $800,000 fine, you know, from their external
Sure.
auditors. Should they not have fixed the lack of section access within their applications? They had a internal audit finding, and then when it came to the external audit, you know, they literally the day before the audit check, they fixed it, but you know, everybody jumped in, obviously, or a week before, or whatever, and they got it done the day before. But what do you reckon? I mean, what's the for regulated companies? You know, it's security, it's data management. This is obviously important for them.
Yeah, no, it is very much so. I mean, and you know, the fact is that it is static. You know, it's not a dynamic thing per se. I mean, there are measures that you can put in place, and it's certainly not so much self-service. I mean, it's usually the application owner or the developer who's managing it, you know, or there is usually like a single person that's managing the access itself. There isn't this ability for the self-service capability, which really is a challenge. And, you know, in a regulated company, there's no other alternative for Qlik users to assign data access rights on a row level. So, you know, hence my previous statements that they have teams maintaining section access. And, you know, it's also not an option for these companies or any company looking to protect their data. Companies have, you know, all kinds of data they should not share with everybody, such as salaries and budgets. But additionally, you have to, you know, you got the regulated compliance requirements with that personal data protection as well. So like POPI, GDPR, you know, those sorts, and globally to adhere to. So, you know, depending on where you host your data or your apps with influence, what people, you know, what data protection you require with regards to which standards you should be applied, it's complicated, as this ties into your publication methodology of distributing your apps to people and locations. And I mean, let's face it, Qlik itself is, you know, promoting their SaaS offering quite heavily, and then the on-premise capability. So now you've got to keep in mind if data goes or an app is now hosted in the EU and you're in South Africa or somewhere else, you know, how when it lands in the EU, what data do you need to hide and things like that. So it can become very complex.
Okay, and well, of course, companies with lots of apps, right? So and operating globally. So let's talk about some standards. I mean, you shared a doc. Let's have a look at that. you know, so it's a Qlik best practice doc, obviously. You know, managing data security with section access for the SaaS edition for Qlik Sense. It's on the Qlik partner portal, and there's the URL. Really, really great doc, right? So maybe, you know, you said that section access is nuanced, okay, and it's, you know, it's easy to understand, but it's complicated to maintain, right? And it takes maintenance and it takes work. So talk to me about some top learnings. You know, I mean, what nuances have you found? Share
Yeah, I
some
mean, look,
stories.
let's face it. Qlik, yes, launches a standard, and saying how you should do it and that, and everyone always finds a different way to, or everyone's got a different way that they do section access. This person's got an Excel file, this one's got an inline load, this one's got a SQL table or identity management, or even tags or custom components from a Qlik side. So there's so many different ways you can do it. So even standardization is a little bit tricky on that side. But I mean, usually when we're talking about section access, to keep things simple, and let's face it, we're not usually going to be building that same application forever in a day, right? So especially on my side, I'll build an application. From data all the way to the front end, and then I got to pass that on to the customer, and the customer now has to continue with that application there afterwards. So there are typically standards that you kind of want to stick with. So for example, keeping your security all in one application, whether you're doing a whole bunch of resident loads and combining tables and that, and in the end getting your section access table, it's still much better to keep everything in that single sheet that then consists of all your security. And then there's things that people forget about, that the field names need to be uppercase, so the actual name of the dimension itself, and then also the contents of the field as well, so the values, they all need to be uppercase. That's why usually we'll try to use numeric fields, then we don't worry about things like that. But people that are doing section access for the first time, or even a couple of times, it's things that you do forget, and then you end up locking yourself out of the application. And at least, thank goodness, with Qlik Sense, they brought in the fact that we can right click and open the app without data. I mean, it was a nightmare in Qlik View. If you locked yourself, you could open the app without data, but to get to that point was a little bit cumbersome. And then when we're talking about multiple reduction fields, I mean, in many cases, you can't just reduce your data on one field. You're going to have, area, department, and manager, for example, and those are all your key reduction fields. So to avoid any loops or circular references or things like that in your data model, then you need to make a composite key out of them. And then even the fact of some of the features that are available here and there. And, if we take an example I came across the other day, which is the serial function that was available in Qlik View, where you could put the serial key of the server so that app only opens on that server, which is a great feature, because if you take that app and you try and put it anywhere else, it's not going to open anywhere else except on that specific server with that license key. Now in Qlik Sense, that's not available, but in Qlik Sauce, it is. But now you don't put the license key, you put Qlik Cloud as your serial, and then that app will only open up on Qlik Cloud. So it's strange little things like that they've decided to not standardize, and things that you might not think that are obvious. I mean, for example, the stories feature in Qlik Sense, where some user will create a story, they'll take their snapshots, create their entire story in that, and then give you access to it, and then you look at the story, and the KPI on the story says X, but when you go to the live data, it says Y. So, the whole thing is that the snapshot is based on the person that took it and their security rights. And when you go back to the live data of it, it's now based obviously on your profile. So you need to keep those things in mind. And, and without digging through stuff or documentation like the URL that we've shared there, you wouldn't know that Insights Advisor chat doesn't support SA, section access. You would think that that's a normal thing that would be available and works. But yeah, so now even you need to think your apps that are going to be utilized by Insights Advisor chat, you have to think around how you're going to develop them and make sure that it's not sensitive information in them that's available, and then lastly that comes to mind is your ODAG, so your on-demand app generation. You need to then include your internal SA API user, otherwise it's not going to go and create the offshoot application for you. So yeah, these are things that you keep bumping your head on until you read the documentation, or you've gone through the pain until you learn these things.
Understood. No, I'm starting to understand the complexities. It's good to have a great standard, but when it doesn't apply to all the tools, you need to be able to kind of manage it between, right? So,
yeah.
Well, I would expect that Qlik, being the great company they are, would bring it into Insights Advisor chat at some stage, obviously, and make it work,
of course,
across all the products. But yeah, it's nuanced. So, but as I recall, we discussed section access in 2015, 14 or 15, around there. And we did a specification for how we could automate this for customers, at that time. And I'm sure the capabilities exist now to build something for Qlik. We should go back and have a look at what we planned. What do you reckon?
Yeah, no, we should definitely. It would be a product that could do well in a regulated data self-service world. It would be great, especially all these nuances I spoke about, to simplify those things, and among many other things. And you know what, we could just as well call it Section Access Manager.
No, that would be a great name, like SAM.
Yeah, I think
awesome.
So.
Yeah. Okay. So let's leave it there, for now, and see what we come up with. But thanks very much, and for the podcast. Thanks, Jace. Really good.
Thanks.
Nice, quick discussion. Always good to talk, to a Qlik specialist and understand the challenges and possible ways to improve people's lives through our podcast. So I really appreciate your time and participation. I hope this was a good session for everybody and all our listeners, and look forward to sharing our next podcast. You never know. It might even be about the next product we'll be launching soon. Thanks, Jace.
Thank you very much.
Have a great night, and enjoy.
Thanks. You too.
Cheers.
Bye.